So once again, I'm late to this news. I don't think that's anything new at this point. Doc Rivers is the coach of the Philadelphia 76ers now. So what does this do for Philly? I mean, Doc is a very good defensive coach. His offense it has like a very bold, simplistic style. I think Kenny Atkinson is a better coach as far as like motion, like offensive motion goes. I think it's also important to talk about how they improve, like the Doc versus Brett Brown. I think it's important to talk about that. Doc is definitely a better X's and O's guy. He's definitely not like one of the best X's and O's guy in the league. If I had to like rank him, probably like I don't know, there's 11 maybe. There's guys that are better. There's also guys that are worse. I don't think Doc Rivers is among the best coaches anymore. I honestly think this hiring had a lot to do with like they want someone who gets respect in the locker room, and Doc has always been respected by almost every team he's coached. You know, the old Celtics teams that won in '08, Lob City. This most recent team had chemistry issues. His teams are known for underachieving in the playoffs, and we've talked about his unwillingness to make adjustments. We've talked about his struggle in the playoffs. I mean, how does this work with Simmons and Embiid? I think this gives Embiid better looks on the post, really. Probably you'll see Simmons setting more off-ball screens. Not that he hasn't, but probably see a little bit more of that. As far as like Josh Richardson goes, I feel like since Doc favors defensive guys, I feel like Josh Richardson will probably have a bigger role than what he has now. So what about Horford? I think they most likely trade Horford. Back to the Doc Rivers, Josh Richardson conversation. Doc Rivers isn't like developing players. I mean, obviously he's no Kenny Atkinson, but can he? So one thing about Brett Brown is like on the JJ Redick podcast, they were talking about how there would be team meetings and nothing would get done. And is Doc Rivers the kind of guy who can get things done in those meetings? I think so. But as far as like player development, a lot of it is on the players to like you can't convince someone to work harder. Like they have to work harder themselves. They have to push themselves. It's not something where like a coach can come in and like let's say the Warriors fire Steve Kerr and hire somebody like just to develop. Obviously this is a hypothetical scenario and this would never happen, but they hire somebody to fix Wiggins' work ethic and get him to that place where he was supposed to be like 3 years ago. That couldn't happen. Like there's no making Andrew Wiggins care. There's no making him care. Now, something I will say though, there is putting him in an environment where it is easier for him to have that like desire to be better. You could put players around him who will want to see him go to that next level. We kind of saw that with Jimmy Butler, and I'm getting a little bit off track here, but I mean, hey, not even Jimmy Butler could get that guy to care about his game, so that's saying something. Anyways, off of that talk, back onto Doc Rivers. I mean, like I said, Doc Rivers has always been good defensively, and these Philadelphia teams have had like as far as defensive rating goes, like a pretty good defense throughout the last couple of years. So what's their defense looking like now that Doc's the coach? I think it depends on what happens to Horford. They get rid of Horford and his contract and add like, I don't know, another. What would they add? Not sure, but let's say they add like another key defensive piece at like the guard position. Like since Simmons is running the forward now, unless Doc being the coach changes things. Like if Simmons not running the point guard, let's say they trade Horford for like Victor Oladipo. I don't think that would happen, but let's just say, assume that Victor Oladipo comes back fully healthy. Where does their defense go? Like, what does it jump to now that Doc Rivers is the coach? I'd say top 5 in the league. Top 5 defenses in the league. Now, that's obviously in the regular season. As far as the playoffs go, like, yesterday we talked about the weaknesses in Doc Rivers's, like, playoff rep sheet. And how he has struggled to make adjustments when needed. He has struggled, like, obviously the whole thing playing Montrezl over Zubac when Zubac was obviously, like, just the better defender and the better guy to put on Jokic. Yeah, there's that. Overall, I think the Sixers really improved from this move. I think Brett Brown, like, they literally brought that guy in to tank, to be bad, so they can get high draft picks, and somehow they made it all the way to the East. And I'm not saying like Brett Brown's Jim Boylan or anything, but obviously if you're a tanking team, you see what Philadelphia did, and you see how Brett Brown worked with that. And I mean, if you're the Thunder, I mean, Brett Brown's looking like a really good option. Anyways, enough about the Thunder. Back onto just like the whole Philadelphia situation. Where does this put Tobias Harris? I think this puts him in a pretty weird spot because he's not a bad defender. He's not a good defender. He's like average. My thing is like, what are the Sixers like trying to do with this move? I don't think they're trying to be like the next Lob City, which somebody had a video on. I can't remember when, but it was basically saying that like Doc Rivers to New Orleans as the head coach and turn New Orleans into Lob City with like Zion as the Blake Griffin type guy and like Drew Holiday or something as like the Chris Paul, which I mean, some of his points made sense, but I don't think that's what. And I honestly thought that was a realistic possibility that Doc Rivers goes to the Pelicans. But yeah, I thought the points that he brought up in that video really made sense, and I honestly, for up until the news today, I thought that Doc Rivers to New Orleans was a possibility. I don't see this happening in Philadelphia, to be honest, because I don't think they really have like a DeAndre Jordan. I mean, Embiid is very good at the defensive end, like very, very good at the defensive end. The thing is that DeAndre Jordan was like, he didn't have the, like Embiid has he's miles ahead of like DeAndre Jordan's offense. Like he's probably one of the best like pure offensive centers in the NBA next to like guys like Towns, KP. Like he's top 5 as far as like pure offense goes. But that doesn't mean that he's like not good at the other end. He's very good at the other end of the floor. DeAndre Jordan was not that though. DeAndre Jordan was not an offensive guy. He was kind of DeAndre Jordan was just like all he was getting was lobs. Like that's where more and offensive rebounds, putbacks, things like that. That's where all his offense was coming from. And I can't see Doc Rivers trying to put Embiid in that spot. So I don't think that's a possibility. Like I said, I see a lot more post-ups ran for Embiid off of like a Simmons off-ball screen. But we were talking about where does Tobias Harris fit in all this. So Doc Rivers on the Celtics love to run this like Paul Pierce elbow ISO. I could kind of see, and we saw a little bit of this in Los Angeles too with the Clippers. I think we saw some Paul George ISOs, and I mean, I honestly think Doc Rivers will probably have Harris run some ISOs since he's a pretty good offensive player. I mean, his percentages are pretty good, so I think we see him run some ISOs for the Sixers. Now, let's say Horford doesn't get traded. Where does Horford fit in all this? I think they probably make Horford a backup considering they're moving Simmons to the 4. I don't think you can move. I think Simmons is like way too tall and way too long to move him to the 3, and then you have to put Tobias Harris somewhere. So I think they probably have him off the bench, like a 6-man kind of role. But at least that's what I see them doing. But I don't think they keep Horford. I don't think it's even worth like trying to discuss what would happen if the Sixers kept Horford, because I don't think it's happening. Although I don't know what you can get for Al Horford's contract. There's been talks about like the Sixers really want Buddy Hield and everything. Maybe I can make a separate video on that. So where does this, like, overall, how would I grade this hiring? Like a B+. Anyways, that's about it. See you.